Senator Shaheen just pressed FBI Director Kash Patel on a critical question. If the agency dismantles its disinformation task force, who will stop foreign adversaries from manipulating Americans online? And it's not just politics, it's national security at stake.
Thank you, Director. Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ranking Member Van Hollen and Chairman Collins, and thank you all for your nice comments. Welcome, Director Patel. The recently released 2025 Worldwide Threat Assessment identifies Chinese, Russian, and Iranian malign influence activities as continued problems that jeopardize U.S. democracy at home and leadership abroad. So I was concerned when I heard about the decision to dismantle our efforts to combat disinformation and misinformation, including the FBI-run Foreign Influence Task Force. So with the dismantling of this task force, how does the FBI intend to continue to combat malign influence campaigns, which is the threat identified by the intelligence community?
Thank you, Senator. To put it most simply, that mission set is something that multiple divisions in the FBI do 24/7, nonstop. That's been my experience since I got there. They've been, because of the malign influence campaigns and because of the prioritization on the intelligence apparatus to collect against them, we have been covering down on that as a priority one, nonstop. And so I see it every day in my briefings, I see it every day in the field, and I see it in the cases and indictments we bring. So I don't know that I can't speak to it before, but I haven't seen it slowed down since I was here.
Well, you gave an impressive list of some of the accomplishments of the FBI since you took over. There was nothing about disinformation and misinformation on that list that I heard. Is there anything that you have seen in the time that you have been at the FBI that would suggest that you're continuing to make inroads to address that issue?
In terms of faulty intelligence collection, ma'am?
No, I'm in terms of disinformation and misinformation campaigns by our adversaries that are being used to disrupt activities in the United States, to sow divisions, to undermine our national security, to undermine the security of American citizens?
Understood. I see that on a daily basis, the FBI adjudicating those matters based on the intelligence we receive and attacking the problem sets, not just here in the homeland, but abroad where they originate. And we are also using our cyber capabilities and our intel capabilities to thwart those adversaries' abilities to penetrate infrastructure, including social media, to put those campaigns on.
It would be helpful to get a briefing at some point about what you're seeing with respect to the ability to disrupt those campaigns that are going on in the United States. Along those lines, Congress passed the Foreign Agents Registration Act to help Americans better understand the sources of information and disinformation that we're getting from our adversaries abroad. Again, I saw that the Department of Justice will no longer investigate possible FARA violations outside of traditional espionage activities. So can you explain to me how you distinguish traditional espionage activities from FARA violations in those investigations? And again, in light of the 2025 threat assessment that still identifies those Russian, Chinese, and Iranian malign influence activities as a threat, doesn't this give a green light to those nations to increase their use of agents in the United States?
I can't speak to the disposition of the Department of Justice and FARA. I'll leave that to them. But what I can tell you when it comes to who opens cases and how, whether it's adversarial, foreign adversaries or anything on the homeland, the line agents in the field have their dialogue, and they simply open cases and investigations whether or not there is a legal and factual basis to do so. And based on that, the amount of cases and investigations we are currently running to thwart adversarial operations inside America and those that attack American facilities outside of America, I see on a daily basis. I have not seen a downtick in that whatsoever.
Well, again, I would appreciate a briefing
No problem.
at some point, and maybe the committee could request that. Let me just ask quickly a final question, because you mentioned the scourge of fentanyl in your opening statement, which we've seen too often in New Hampshire and across this country. And I wonder if you could speak to the activities to address what's happening with social media platforms, which is where so many people are getting fentanyl, and they're coming. People buy them thinking they're buying some other prescription drug, and what they get is fentanyl. So can you talk about what you're doing to address that?
Absolutely. I could talk about that for hours, but I'll try to do it in a minute. Just to put it in perspective, in these last 3 months versus the first 3 months of last year, the FBI seized last year 620 kilograms of fentanyl. In these 3 months of this year, we have seized 840 kilograms of fentanyl. That's enough to kill hundreds of millions of people. And specifically, we've taken to the streets in every single state, including New Hampshire, where we received 2,100 grams of fentanyl in these last few months. And what you highlight is one of the critical things that I'm focused on in how the distribution of fentanyl occurs to our children. And so what we are doing is using our online capabilities and our online platforms to offensively go after those that are fashioning fentanyl in a form that's appealing to our children. But the most important thing that I'm focused on when it comes to fentanyl, in that I launched when I first got there, is not just the narco traffickers that distribute the fentanyl here in North America, but no one's gone after the precursor companies and the production in mainland China. I launched that operation the first week I got there, and I'm working with our interagency partners on banking to shut down the precursors in our allied nations across the world that receive those precursors. If we shut that down, there's no version of fentanyl coming to America. So we're doing it from both ends.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Senator Jeanne Shaheen didn't mince words during the hearing with FBI Director Kash Patel. Her questions weren't just procedural, they cut to the heart of a growing threat: foreign disinformation and the dismantling of the FBI's task force dedicated to countering it. Russia, China, and Iran have long been identified by intelligence agencies as actors seeking to manipulate American democracy. Shaheen's concern is clear. Without a centralized effort to combat these campaigns, how can the United States hope to protect its citizens and institutions? Patel emphasized that multiple FBI divisions are working on these threats 24/7 and claimed that operations haven't slowed under his leadership. But Shaheen wasn't satisfied with generalities. She pressed him on whether the agency was truly making measurable inroads against disinformation campaigns, pointing out that no specific examples were included in his list of accomplishments. This exchange highlights a critical tension in law enforcement today. How do you effectively counter influence operations when the line between espionage, legal authority, and public communication is so complex? Shaheen also raised the issue of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, noting that if the Department of Justice limits its investigations outside traditional espionage, adversaries might feel emboldened to exploit gaps in oversight. Patel's answer emphasized the role of field agents, but the exchange underscores the broader question of how the U.S. balances civil liberties with the need for proactive defense against information warfare. The conversation then shifted to fentanyl trafficking, showing another dimension of the FBI's domestic responsibilities. Patel highlighted a surge in seizures and emphasized the agency's efforts to attack both distribution networks in the U.S. and precursor production abroad, particularly in China. This dual approach, online monitoring, international cooperation, and domestic enforcement, demonstrates how multifaceted the FBI's work has to be in today's interconnected threatscape. The broader lesson is that national security today isn't just about spies and agents, it's about information, digital infrastructure, and public awareness. Decisions about dismantling task forces, limiting oversight, or reallocating resources can have real-world consequences that affect every American. Shaheen's line of questioning reminds us that vigilance, transparency, and accountability are essential to countering both foreign interference and domestic dangers like fentanyl. Understanding these dynamics helps viewers see why congressional oversight matters, why agency structure is critical, and how threats can evolve faster than policy responses. It's a reminder that protecting democracy isn't abstract. It's ongoing work that relies on people, resources, and accountability. If this breakdown helped you understand these complex issues, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Left Lens. Staying informed is the first step to engaging with the forces shaping our country and our world.